I'd like to now bring up the next panel. So I'd ask the panelists as I announce your name to come up and we can hand you a microphone. But first I'd like to bring up Gareth Nicholson. He is, sorry. Yes, he is our Deputy Technology Editor at the SCMP. I lost my space in the script there. Joining him on stage is Professor Whitman Hung. He's a Hong Kong deputy with the 13th National People's Congress, as well as the Principal Liaison Officer for Hong Kong Shenzhen Qianhai Authority. Then we have Jonathan Pang. He's a Senior Solutions Architect with Alibaba Cloud Intelligence, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, Korea, and the Philippines. And Pamela Marr, an Executive Vice President for Knowledge and Applications with the Fung Academy at Fung Group. Welcome the panel on stage, everyone.
Okay, welcome everyone. I hope you're going to enjoy this panel session, which is all about the impact of AI on jobs, which is obviously something that affects all of us in this room in a very direct way. And I think I'd just like to kick things off really with the very basic question that comes up frequently in these discussions, just as a kind of opener, which is when we talk about the impact of AI on jobs, are we looking at fewer jobs in future? Are we looking at more jobs? Or are we looking at a complete transformation, actually, of the workforce? Or is it actually just a redundant question? Whitman, are you an optimist or a pessimist on this basic question?
I am an optimist. I'm always an optimist since I was born.
Yep.
Otherwise, I won't be here. I think number of jobs, I don't know. Job hours definitely decrease. Okay. I like to imagine when, well, not now, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years later, we will be going back to ancient times of where slavery was still there. The Greeks, Romans, and, ancient China, where the slave does all the work and the gentleman, will be, well, 80% of them will be enjoying life and having parties and taking baths openly, like the Romans, and drinking wine. There will be like 10 or 20% of them will be thinking about meaning of life, philosophy, science, God, all those things. So, and the future is the slave are the machines. So all the repetitive works, all the labor works. I mean, we'll still have sports. We'll still have people who will be, doing work just for the fun. But I think the number of job hours will decrease. There will be new jobs created, but I think, I don't know why we have to work 40 hours a week, right? Maybe we will be working, 15 hours a week, and then, spending our time on better things such as playing games and thinking about philosophy.
So basically, the slaves in the past were the humans. This is nothing to worry about. The slaves in the future will be the robots.
Yes.
And
they're much better to manage. They don't get pregnant. They don't have diseases,
Okay.
You have to give them power, but that's
This is
it.
just another phase of the sort of modern industrial revolution. We're going into the next phase and nothing particularly to worry about.
I think it's just the development of civilization, I would say.
Pamela, what do you make of this?
So I think it's a bit of a downer to be a pessimist. So we have to find ways to be an optimist about this. And I think actually, we the Fung Group, we look at this from a supply chain perspective, and the supply chain over the past 3 decades has never stopped evolving, never stopped growing, never stopped changing in terms of job natures and so on. So I think, it's basically impossible to look at this question from a society-wide perspective because, we're in a constant process of change. Now, if you're a factory owner, okay, yes, maybe the number of workers that you need to do manual tasks is going to decrease, but you will need other workers who can perform other kind of value-added activities. And so, yes, on a sewing line, maybe once we perfect robotic sewing, we won't need 40 workers, okay? And now that we're doing a lot more smart camera, with all the technologies in your smart vision report, yeah, we won't need 5 QA inspectors. But on the other hand, we will need more people to do digital functions, to read data, to perform other values with the customers. And then supply chain service providers also, we won't need as many staff to do manual tasks, but you will need other people to do things with data and data insight and so on. So it's really difficult to say, okay, will we need the same number of employees? The value produced, regardless of how many people, will actually be greater. And the environment of work, just going back to the robot, the cleaning robot, right now a factory may be having 5 cleaners per floor to sweep all the textile waste and so on. They could buy 2 of those machines and do it. And those 5 people could be redeployed. And the environment would be cleaner, it would be more healthy, and that actually has an impact on organizational, on employee engagement, happiness, the feeling that of a clean, well-lighted workspace, which has mental benefits. So are we gonna say, yeah, but we lost 5 jobs, so let's stop that? No, of course we're gonna continue to figure out what are the ways in which technology can actually make all of our jobs and all of our work environments better and enable the factories to provide the services that are now needed by buyers and retailers worldwide.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily too negative, Pamela. I think that's more an evenly balanced view. Jonathan, obviously you work at Alibaba, which is one of the leading appliers of AI today. What's your view on this kind of impact on the kind of jobs, on the number of jobs?
First of all, this is an honor to invite us here, and it's very nice to see so many people that in this area which is interested in this AI, for the impact in the future. And for us, I think, I'm very optimistic for AI in the future. I think AI brings good impact for human being, as a whole. So if look at Alibaba, actually for just like 3 or 5 years ago, we are only having like 60,000 employees work on, single stage, which is, there's lots of problems we face, like logistics, like how to support, the call center, etc. Nowadays, we leverage AI to do single stage, which the productivity and the service quality, etc., is improving by a lot. Which, if we look at the percentage of how many workload we use, by AI or by just traditional human being, by a comparison, for example, like we use this call center, we call 云小蜜, which like a chatbot for some post-sale or pre-sale support chatting to our end customer, which traditionally you need a person to sit behind the PC and do all the talking. Nowadays, our AI chatbot handle like 500 million calls or these conversations in just one day. So you can imagine how many people would need at that day if you don't use AI. So it would take 50 or even more percentage of the workload, by AI. Even at this kind of situation, Alibaba growth, nowadays we are almost like 200,000 employees worldwide. So even we leverage AI by a lot, we still have many places.
That's an interesting insight. So, I mean, as a case study, you actually employ more people today than you've ever employed before. I just want to have one follow-up, because obviously we report a lot about the e-commerce industry at the SCMP. And, nowadays we do see a lot of the pictures, especially on the logistics side, of the robots who are doing the sorting and the packing, and the robots now doing deliveries as well. So clearly, there has been an elimination of some of the things that would have been done by humans in that space. But on the other hand, clearly there's been big growth in things like cloud, so you're employing more data scientists to kind of analyze that kind of data. Yeah. Okay, so that's the opener. So I think that's basically quite a positive outlook. Nobody's really negative on that, but we will get back to this area later, where we look at some of the kind of uneven application of AI around the world and what it means for different kinds of economies. But next, really, what I want to ask a little bit more about and delve deeper into is the nature of this change and the kind of processes that are coming in and how work is changing for many people. I mean, on the one hand, we're talking about something like robotic process automation, which is just this kind of replacement of manual labor with robots and automatic keystrokes and driven by computers. But on another level, we're also talking about AI in things like healthcare, assisting doctors with diagnostic tools to detect lung cancer from scans and healthcare at a distance. Whitman, how do you see this changing the nature of work?
Yes, it is very true. Well, first of all, I mean, we have to understand the nature of AI. I mean, what is AI? You know, as in Jack Ma said, it shouldn't be called AI, it should be called machine intelligence. I kind of agree with him. You know, what we're doing basically is based on big data, that this deep learning mode that the machine try to imitate and learn, so they cannot create. So anything that needs creativity, for example, using Pamela's case, okay? Yes, you don't need the sewing workers, you don't need the QA, you need more designers, because people will be asking for different things. They're not happy with the traditional, like, one-size-fits-all kind of fashion. They want everything to be different. So you'll probably need more designers, okay? You know, the chatbot things, yes, you don't need the call center agents anymore, and maybe just a few supervisors to handle exceptional case. But then what we'll need is that you need to rethink why people are asking those questions. Should you improve your software? Should you improve your, I don't know, tutorial, whatever? So the nature of jobs for people is that people should do things that AI cannot do. And there's still a lot. You know, arts, creativity, anything that needs something that cannot be, you know, copied, cannot be learned, then that's something that human will continue to do. So that's why I'm very optimistic about, like, entertainment industry, you know, gaming, this kind of, and of course arts and science, arts and design. You know, but of course, one thing I'll be a little bit careful about using the Alibaba case as a good example of jobs are increasing. You have to understand, Alibaba was successful, but at the same time, they're replacing other companies, okay? In the logistics industry, in the distributors, shopping malls, all these, the companies are going belly up. I mean, maybe hundreds of thousands of them. Okay, I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying the case is that using one technology company's growth is not a good example. Okay, but so I still think that the total number of working hours will decrease. Okay.
So it will end in a higher quality of life for human beings, essentially.
Yes.
But the jobs, you can't look at one company because it's pulling jobs in from other places, and other places are losing those jobs.
Right.
Yeah. Pamela, what's your perspective on this one?
Yeah, so I'm actually quite, I see a huge challenge for, in terms of AI, and it's not because of the number of jobs, it's because of the type of organizational culture that will accommodate this kind of change in a successful way. And that's where I think Asia has a lot of work to do, because, you know, in our own studies about organizations or even factories which have gone through digitalization, and we began this digitalization journey in 2017, you know, in our facilities, in our manufacturing facilities, and basically we found that actually workers, even those who weren't digital natives, they could learn, you know, to read data. They could get with automation. That wasn't the issue. Everybody was trainable. I mean, of course, some people, they will never go along, but that's true with any kind of new skill, is that some people will adapt faster and most people will adapt, and you just need to train them up. What was really interesting is that once they felt empowered by data, they started to know more than the managers about certain operations. And, you know, that's very it makes sense. You know, you give data and you empower the people on the job, and then they want a different culture. They said, okay, why isn't there more transparency about what changes are coming, about the way that the changes are being undertaken? And they want, and that was very different from the top-down culture, which we see in most Asian organizations. And so, and that is replicated. And so you need a special type of team in order to go along with that special type of leader. And I'm sure, Akina, you've seen this in your transformation. You said, okay, do I have time? Do I have money? Do I have people? Even if you have time and money, you know that when you go to a team, you got to have the right people there in order to do the digital transformation, even if they have time and money. It's like the people's mindset is a huge factor. And so I think, and then if you just extrapolate outwards to the organizational culture, can the organization sustain that kind of new transparency, collaborative openness, especially for organizations which have built the culture where every team keeps their own data and their own kind of secrets to themselves. And I think that's a very different kind of culture than exists in so-called the traditional top-down. It takes different kind of leadership. So yeah, we say, okay, we want our employees to reskill, move up, in technology. We want all our designers to learn new tools, but you also have to provide the culture which enables them to take risks, not be afraid to fail, collaborate, be open, look for all of those ways to share, because and realize and really begin to live the idea that data for all of us openly is actually going to create something better than if we just keep ourselves in silos.
Yeah.
So I think this is a massive challenge, because it's just not how most of traditional top-down Asian organizations operate.
Okay, so it's less about process, it's more about creating a new mindset, a new culture to move forward with AI.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
process is important. You
Yeah.
can drive through digital transformation projects just like we do for any other kind of change.
But if you get the
projects.
culture right, that will
But
follow.
It's,
Yep.
it's that the thing with digital is that because transparency is such a big factor, that is just really it's like a leap.
Okay, yeah, that's fantastic insight. We'll come back to training later, but first I just want to talk to Jonathan a little bit about the nature of how jobs are changing.
Yes.
And clearly, we mentioned Alibaba, but for cloud companies in general, it's really about how those cloud companies can now help businesses better manage their own businesses using data as the new kind of oil to fuel their business. Maybe you can talk a bit about your experience.
Okay, for the job nature, I think definitely will be different from nowadays. Just like I think AI is just an industry revolution. Just like the old day, we have a machine. If you want to take some land, you need like 10 laborers to do the job. At the old day, once you have a machine, you just need one driver and a machine to take the job. So people's job nature need to change, right? So I think for us, I think no matter in manufacturing, design, or other industry, the people with the knowledge need to change. With the combination, need to learn a bit of AI in their subject or master, so they can know how to adapt AI or this new data technology in their industry or in their domains. And
It's gone way beyond chatbots now. I mean, it used to be
yes,
chatbots, but
of
now
course,
it's
because
really,
we use AI in many different.
It's kind of using data as a heat map for your whole kind of understanding of a customer.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. So you not just Q&A, do that kind of work. You need to know how to leverage AI to do your job. So the job nature is different, but the productivity of the person is increased by a lot. So I think the nature is definitely changed in the future. Yeah.
Okay, so clearly we're talking about big change, and we've gone from it's coming down the line to it's actually here now. Given that it's going to be this huge change, I want to ask more about the education and training side. How do we prepare for this change? And I'm thinking, number one, in terms of governments, what do governments have to do? Number two, what corporations and companies have to do. And then, number three, what can individuals themselves do to prepare Whitman?
Well, the first thing governments have to do worldwide is to increase tax, maybe kind of like a robotic tax. I think that's important because obviously there will be, people, if people have to work less hours, they still have to be fed, right? So
but
somehow.
Is this tax to pay for more investment, or is it tax to kind of compensate?
No, it's tax to compensate the workforce because otherwise the people, if you just believe on the market will say, okay, I replace the workers with robots, and then I keep all the money I save to myself, and then the workers will have a problem. So I mean, back to the old Roman and Greece days, it's the same thing. They have high taxes.
But they don't pay, they die.
Yeah, maybe. Or they got kicked out of the citizenship. But education needs to change. And I just want to, reflect on what Pamela said. I'm actually less worried about the culture thing. Let's remember, what we have today, the culture, is what is post-industrial revolution. When was that? 300 years ago? 200 something? I forgot my history, but, it's not that long. Okay? The problem, of course, is that our current education system is based on the Industrial Revolution model. High division of labor, people specialize in things, and it becomes so specialized. If you go back to, again, I really like Greece. The old ancient Greece days, okay, the academy, there's no arts and science. There's no a Bachelor of Arts in Logistics Management. Nowadays, our education are so fine, so specialized, that what we train out, the students, can be easily out of the job once that job is gone. But if we, going back to Plato and Aristotle's days, where people just learn about knowledge about the universe, knowledge about human, knowledge about all kinds of things, and knowledge about how AI works, then we don't have to worry about these specialized things. I mean, the way we train we educate. I hate to use the word educate because we're really not educating them, we're just training them. Is by giving them knowledges, feed them with lots of knowledge, and then train them to memorize the perceived correct answer so that they can respond to a problem when there's a problem. Okay, so that they can fulfill their job. That's what we have been doing for the past 100, 200 years. In the future, we don't need that because obviously Google knows more about knowledge than any human being. We have all kinds of scenario, AI that have learned that can solve this kind of problem when it comes. What we need to train our kids is creativity, is how to learn, how to search for knowledge, okay, and how to create. And that is something that's really lacking in our current system. So I think some of our universities are already changing. The University of Science and Technology is going to be a new campus in Nansha, Guangzhou, and I happen to know some of their presidents and vice presidents. What they're having there will be all cross-discipline. There will not be a Bachelor of Science in Physics or Bachelor Business Management. It will all be cross-disciplined, every single course. Okay, and then the UCL has introduced a new course called Bachelor of Arts and Science. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to train to me, this is not just a revolution, industrial revolution. I think this is the next renaissance. And what we need is to train our kids to be the Renaissance man. If you remember in Renaissance days, Michelangelo is both a scientist and biologist and philosopher and a designer, right? And we need to let our future generation to be like that, and then they can choose to do whatever they like, or they can change from jobs to jobs, because all the repetitive things, all the specialized things, all the way we do things today, the so-called professions, lawyers and accountants, those jobs will be changed significantly. Not even with AI, and just with blockchain, one of these days, we don't need auditors, right? Okay, so we need, and then maybe for simple kind of business dispute, maybe we can use an AI judge, which will be definitely impartial and remember all the laws and react much quicker and much cheaper. So what we need to do is then, instead of training our kids to do the jobs that we have today, we need to prepare them to be future ready. And that is a big challenge, but we need to change our education system all the way from primary school to university. Maybe we're starting with universities, but definitely we need to change the whole education system.
Wow. So quite a big change.
Yes,
in
and then we
education.
don't, if we do not do that in the next 15 years, we'll be in deep trouble. Because we'll be training up kids that are not future ready, and they'll be very unhappy. And then we really have a social problem.
Yep. So actually, less
build-
specialization, but broader education. Yeah.
Yeah, just building on what Whitman has said, I think it's everything you've said is encapsulated in this this kind of motto that we have within the Fung Group, that we need to move from scalable efficiency as a competitive advantage to scalable learning, and that's from John Seeley Brown. And what it means is that we need to build a culture of constant learning in order to be able to have employees who can adapt to any situation, and that the assumption is that as an employee gets, their first job, is that that will not be the job that they will actually be doing for any length of time. Is that every job is going to be continually changing, taking on new tasks, shedding old tasks, and that the job of the employee is not just to execute efficiently, but to execute plus learn, and that's a very different expectation. And I'm just thinking back to, I go into factories, and you see rows and rows of sewing workers, and everyone's kind of doing their thing, and then you ask them, do these workers move around? Like, does the one sewing the collar, can they also do sleeves? Can they also go to do quality check? Can they also go into the cutting room and so on? And in most of the cases, most of the traditional factories, they say, no, every worker, if you're a sewer, you're a sewer. And so then you have a lot of idle time and so on. And the first thing we always do in those factories when we embark on lean transformation and upgrading and productivity improvement is make people ambidextrous in terms of different skills, being able to be redeployed. And I think every employee is going to have to do that, is that, when you say everyone needs to have a degree of digital education and AI understanding in order to figure out the way that that's going to apply to their job. It's not just, I'm going to take my company's course on AI and then I'll be set. Okay?
I think AI should be taught in primary school instead, not a degree.
Both.
And I guess
there's no finite skills.
Yes,
it's that continual growing skills.
Just a related question, Jonathan, as well. I mean, when we talk about the workforce, we're not talking about a homogenous thing. It's people who are aged anywhere between 18 all the way up to 70, 75. And a lot of times in discussions like this, it comes up that it's maybe older people who are more scared of using new technology. But in many cases, they're the people with the most experience, and they're very valuable employees. So you've got to keep your workforce on board with good training.
Yeah, this is a broad question. I think I need some time to, first of all, I think I totally agree with Plana said. Yeah, I think your company culture need to embrace change, which is a key word in Alibaba as well. So we, for every employee in Alibaba, we need to embrace change at the first day. So, and as you mentioned, lots of our employees are doing the job which they didn't do at the old days for them. So we need to, adaptable to every new change in the industry, in the market, etc. And for your point, we are in an aging society right now, right? And lots of people may be not able to adapt this change, right? So I think for the back to your first question, the policy, the point of view, maybe government or a company, they need to, to have a vision that at the end of the day, we need to improve the quality of human life, right? So at these days, for human being, we are, facing tons of problems right now, like climate change, like, aging societies, etc., like pollution, etc. So, or poor, some people are very poor, etc. So we need people to solve that problem. AI cannot solve every problem, right? So at the end of the day, we still need people to do the job. So we just need to use AI to, improve the productivity of human being to help us to solve every problem. So we have a better future, yeah.
Okay, yeah, interesting. So I think basically the takeaway is it's about lifetime learning and being open to constant change and embracing that change and not kind of doing one job and getting in your corner and thinking this is all I'm going to do for the next 10 years. Okay, before I move on to the next question, just remind the audience, we will take some questions at the end. So if you have a burning question, just write it down. I will leave time. I know many of you in the audience are AI practitioners, so yeah, I will leave some time for that. Okay, the next question is a really interesting one for me, and it's getting away from the changes to jobs per se, and then moving more into what this means in an ethical sense. What are some of the ethics of AI? When AI is going to be applied around different economies around the world, clearly the impact will not be an even one. When we're talking about manual jobs potentially being replaced, that might affect developing economies more than developed economies. So Pamela, what are some of your insights on this question, and what needs to be done to potentially address some of this geographic imbalance?
So I think for, especially when organizations are dealing with employees who may not have benefited from the best education because they're in poor countries, is that the company, first of all, there's going to be people who get redundant, okay, because some employees won't be able to adapt, and anyways, different skills will be needed. So there will be job transitions. The job of the company, the responsibility of the company is to make sure that when those people are made redundant, all the legal stuff should be taken care of, but also that employee goes back out into society with the mindset and with some skills to be effective as a citizen in the digital economy. And that means from the day the employee comes into the company should be using whatever tools it can to educate the employee. And I mean, we did this in our own factories using mobile app. That we were giving employees this habit of learning, not only like training on different sewing functions and training on compliance and all the required trainings, but also training on financial literacy. How do you have a bank account? How do you save? Who should you borrow money from? Why should you not borrow money from a loan shark? These kind of things. And then also even different kind of skills, like how do you manage stress? What about diet? What's in iron? What foods contain iron? These are all basic life skills. But and obviously, in the ideal world, they should be given in the education system, but it's not where it is today. So in the meantime, they should be getting these skills and the habit of always learning, always seeking to improve themselves from their workplace, because it's the reference, it's the number one reference in employees' lives. And so yes, when the time comes that they will be retrenched, they were going to go back out in the workforce, but with a more positive, capable mindset. And obviously, now that they've been learning through mobile app with the ability to pick up information from the internet and elsewhere. And, I was very involved with with launching this, we call it the Worker app. And my sort of dream for that was that a sewing worker who has 9 years of developing country education could one day learn to become a designer, and then go and open up her own, whatever shop if she wanted to. That's what the potential of the internet is. And now every company should be trying to help its employees take full advantage of this. it's the make or break thing for people to find a new job. It's not to say that there aren't things that society and government should be doing, like opening up platforms for people to become freelancers and so on, like what's happened in the U.S. and in developed countries. This is yet to happen in the developing world, except for like Grab and Uber and you know, Didi Chuxing and so on. But
Yep.
you know, companies need to be stepping up and helping their employees adapt.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think, Whitman, maybe we don't even need to go geographical, because even within a huge economy like China's, there are very big regional differences. Obviously, we hear a lot about the big tech companies like Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba, ByteDance, Megvii, SenseTime, and that's clearly the companies that are pushing the next boundaries of AI. But there are also lots of manufacturing companies still in China, and state-owned enterprises and traditional industries that will probably feel more of a negative impact. And you know, how can a government kind of, AI is clearly a big part of China's policy blueprint, but
Yeah.
how do you manage this change?
Well, first of all, I think I wouldn't think they would see it as a negative. I mean, in fact, these kind of traditional industries, they are finding ways of doing digital transformation. You know, they know they are not sustainable, the current model, based on labor intensive, because workers are no longer cheap. Fewer people are willing to go into, you know, factories. That's why, you know, Foxconn had built a lights-off factory, right, in Zhengzhou, where there's absolutely no human on the shop floor. It's a lights-off factory. So I think it's slowly changing, but of course we need to also change the mindset of government and some of the leaders as well. Because for a while we were very focusing on the unicorns, okay, which are the what you just say, the BATs of this world. You know, I am currently pushing a new movement called the zebra movement. Unicorns are rare. You know, I have never seen a unicorn. I don't know about you. You know, I've never seen one in the zoo or in the safari, but I've seen many zebras. What are zebras? They're both black and white. They're both old economy and new economy. They come in herds, they help each other, and they're sustainable. Okay? So instead of looking for all this kind of disruptive innovation, like the unicorns, I am personally, actually, this is literally myself and some of my friends are pushing for this thing called incremental innovation, improvement instead of, you know, a disruption. And then what I'm doing right now is I'm linking up technology companies and also Hong Kong startups with the traditional manufacturers, and not just manufacturers, but even service industries like property managers, okay, with them. So that they can, on one side, the young kids can help them to transform. On the other side, you know, they can leverage technology and innovation to move up the value chain. And I think that is really what's happening in China right now. And not just me, of course, pushing zebra, but other people, is they know we cannot just keep the employment by having unicorns. That is for sure, right? When WhatsApp got sold to Facebook, they have 50 employees. Okay, so what we need is really, you know, changing our, the phones group is actually quite advanced, but some of the other, you know, less advanced traditional companies to utilize technology, not just AI. Back to your ethical question, I mean, there has been academic studies that technology advancement had always created negative impact to income discrepancy. That's been proven. Okay, I couldn't find out that particular paper, but I've read it before. So it's proven. And that has been going on since the Industrial Revolution, not just because of AI. So we need to do something about it, and to do something about it, I think what we need is a better social system, and that's where governments comes in. Okay, that's why I say higher tax. Okay, I meant it. Okay, so we need higher tax, we need better benefits, we need, you know, more, you know, better education. There's a lot of things the government has a role to play. And that's what's happening when you listen to the people in America when they are calling out for this, you know, when they are electing the president. There are people who are thinking, yes, globalization, technology advancement have brought benefit to a finite number of people. Now, how do we share the benefits to the majority? Not just, in China it's much easier because we have an omnipotent government, right? But what about the world? What about the developing country? Well, China's a developing country, but the less developed countries. What do? I think human, as a species, we do think about it. Okay, because obviously, I mean, if we are still thinking kind of nation-state kind of status today, we say, well, we don't care about a country in Africa, but you do, because they're still the same species, and if these people cannot get into becoming a modern nation, you may have a problem sooner or later. So that is something that the whole world needs to think about. I mean, in addition to climate change, is I think we have passed the stage of, I remember there was this theory about like America moving their jobs to the four dragons to the whatever tigers. The tigers then move to China, and then China is moving to Indonesia. Well, Myanmar and Vietnam,
a chain,
and Africa. But that thing kind of will stop very soon because of AI. Okay, when you have a lights-off factory in Zhengzhou, it's most likely going to be cheaper even compared with Bangladesh. So then what you do is you make factories where the market is instead of where the cheap labor is. Okay, and that's already a trend coming right now. So then we need to think about it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting idea between the two things. On one is outright disruption. On the other hand, you could have a system based on incremental change. And I think actually that's something that's been quite core to Japan's industrial policy over the last 2 or 3 decades. Jonathan, I mean, you're at the sharp end. You work in a company where AI is an everyday fact of life. You know, what can companies do to kind of better train their workforce and make sure that they're not afraid to embrace the change?
Okay. Actually, I think for Alibaba, our philosophy to doing business is just like what Jack Ma said. We want everyone to do business in an easy way, you know, for the whole world, right? So this is our value and what, our goal as an organization. So for Alibaba Cloud, even we view AI, we do the same. We want to enable manufacturing or other industry to adopt AI. So what we are doing right now, I think the news just announced yesterday. Our CEO just announced, AI manufacturing platform to support the whole, manufacturing industry to enable them to use AI, to adapt AI. So actually, I'm working on, several AI projects in Hong Kong, which is, traditional transportation industry. They are facing, maintenance and scheduling, optimization, this kind of problems. At the very beginning, they, are in a very doubt for AI, so they don't trust AI at the very beginning. They don't think that, I do this kind of work like 30 years, AI cannot do, it's too complicated. Their employees, they don't understand. Once we engage them to, to work a POC, to really make that happen, they kind of afraid of AI. So they would say, wow, I will lose job in the future, or no more us in this kind of industry in the future. So, and then we talk to them like, no, we don't want AI to replace you. We want AI as an advisor to help you to improve your productivity, to help you to, make your schedule better and make your maintenance more, accurate. So that's what we do. And then, once we talk to them and then they understand it, after all, they use our system daily right now. So they get used to it and they, very thankful. And now we are working on some new project to improve their productivity. So yep. I think it's Alibaba, again, we are enabled now in this industry to, because we use AI a lot, we hope we can help other industry to use AI.
I think that's one of the interesting things. It's like almost like cloud companies, data companies are becoming the new consultancies because they're actually able to help other businesses better manage themselves. Pamela, you wanted to just come in?
Yeah, I think just like Jonathan said, in companies we're figuring out how to make that change, how to bring people along, how to help them change their mindset, and how to help them become advocates for AI in their own jobs. I think from a society-wide perspective, I've heard many people, and it's not, it's not hard to figure out that the education system needs to adapt. Not only teaching people digital skills from a very young age, but also producing graduates who are creative, innovative, able to take risks, and so on. And I think from a society, and this is obvious, right? So why isn't the education system changing more rapidly, especially in developing countries, which will be absorbing a lot of impacts from AI? And there we have to get down to the fact that our societies actually aren't really set up for change, because you have teachers' unions. I've been doing this job for 30 years. Why are you telling me how to teach my students? The testing system, the college entrance examination system, the system for giving professors tenure, all of these are set up for finite knowledge, okay? And these days, like you said in the very beginning, it's not about how many facts you got in your book. It's about your ability to go find the facts. And so, and this affects all of us, because if our governments aren't, and our societies aren't able to change in such a very fundamental way, and it's really easy to identify what the blockers are for education, and so why, what can we all do in order to impress upon our leaders and our educators that the status quo is not going to be good enough to prepare our kids and we worry about climate change. I don't want my grandchildren to, be subsumed by rising seas, but, the education system isn't producing the graduates, even today, that companies need. And so, what do we do about that? It's, and you read the declaration of RCEP and of the G20, I don't think the G20 actually mentioned education. RCEP mentioned transferability of credentials, like certifications from one society to another, so that you could have but I somehow think that we're just completely missing the boat on education, and our change is happening in glacial pace when everything is speeded up.
Yep. Just one final question from me, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. I promised I would leave some time. So maybe if we can just keep it to literally 2 minutes each on the last question, then we'll go to the audience. And I just wanted to end it on the positive note. If we go back to the original basis of the discussion, it's about new job opportunities. And clearly, when we think about AI, one of the major growth areas is obviously in this data science area. It's the creativity part, setting the parameters for what the machines are going to look at. And I think, Whitman, you also had some insights on how important this data is in this region in particular, with the data exchanges that are going on.
Yeah, well, actually, you don't need that many data scientists, because for each company, you probably need one major data architect, and then he doesn't have to work full time, because once it's designed, the machine will just follow up. What we need today actually is, we haven't got the real framework for data yet. Yes, we talk about data as a new fuel, but the laws and regulations are not there yet. Okay, how to protect data? It's not just about privacy. The one biggest argument is that if I just search on Amazon, and somehow Amazon monitor that and created data about me, do I own the data, or does Amazon own the data? Okay, and can Amazon sell my data to somebody else? These kind of things that hasn't been well defined yet anywhere in the world. So, and we are going into, even in China, in Shenzhen, we're going into the legislation of that right now. So only when that is done, then the application of data, because right now it's right for people to be afraid. It's right to be people to be concerned, because Google and Facebook knows more about me than anybody in this world, including my wife. And that really sometimes worries me, So on that side. On the other side, of course, as I said, to train up the data scientists today, there's very few of them, but it's not that hard. If you think about it, I was a math graduate. the AI and big data today is still not very far away from statistics, but it's just a bit more deeper statistics.
But it also needs protecting. So there's
Yes.
a cybersecurity element as well. Jonathan, did you want to just data security? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think for us, we definitely care about data security. Just like Gemma said, if we don't protect customers' data well, Alibaba will crash in just one day.
Yeah.
That's the importance of the data security from our mindset. But for if for AI to transfer different industry, I think the key point is not just data scientists and just not data itself, but also the industry know-how, the experience of the experts in that single industry.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned,
You've got to understand the context.
Yes,
It's not
correct.
just the data. You have to understand
Yes,
what it's
correct.
explaining.
Correct, correct. Nowadays, the only problem is that the industry experts don't know a lot about AI. Alibaba know a lot about AI, but we don't know a lot about the industry know-how. So what we are doing right now is that the combination we're doing, just like you said, we just like a consultant to teach you what is AI, and then you tell me what is the industry experience, how to use your data, or how to use your industry knowledge, and then to apply AI to your industry to improve the productivity. In the future, I think for Alibaba, actually we want to build a platform, which is we care about equality, So we want to build an AI platform that is accessible for everyone, every single one, every single individual. So if they have kind of idea or knowledge, they can use our AI platform to create their own, application or business.
Okay.
So this is what we are doing.
Creating
right
a
now.
secure platform for everybody. Yep. Pamela, some concluding remarks, and then.
This is an impossible question, but I think the thing that companies should be doing and the thing that we should all be doing with AI is to help people be happy. Especially happy given that they may have lost their job to AI. They may face a lot of uncertainty. They may not have the education that they wanted. They may not be able to travel. I mean, that's like our lesson from 2020, right? How do we be happy even though we're not allowed to do all these things, right? And from a company point of view, we are grappling with this question every day. How do you make the product that will enable people to be emotionally satisfied? Okay, get it, right place, right time, close to the point of consumption, all the right sustainability characteristics and so on. It's all about how do you help people be satisfied. And I think if AI could help do that, then we can just all go on vacation.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a perfect place to end the discussion. Let's all go on vacation. Okay, we do have time for audience questions. I promised I would leave some time, so just please, nothing scientific, just stick your hand up if you have a question, and we'll take the question. Anybody? Don't be nervous. Yep, guy at the back.
Hi, I have a question for Pamela. You talked about how companies should and need to start investing in preparing workforce for the future, for their digital capabilities. I'm wondering if you could share any examples, maybe within Phone Group or maybe outside, of how you can more explicitly tie this investment to business value, perhaps short-term or long-term.
Yeah, so it's difficult to sort of calculate the business benefit from long-term education or capability building initiatives. I think the one thing that we have done is put it into incentives, because it's something that we believe that the process of building supply chains is one of constant change, and you can tell when you've hit it, right? You can tell when you've partnered with someone who's going to really help your organization, and it's by believing in that we've put it into the employee evaluations. and to the calculation of compensation. And we've also tried to do that with other core kind of company initiatives as well. And I think that's, over time you'll see that if your employee engagement is higher and if your business renewal rate is higher, then your survival will be higher. Your survivability will be higher because especially right now, it's all about building flexibility and resilience and to being able to adapt to whatever your customers are wanting. And your customers are always wanting more capability, more visibility, more flexibility at a lower price. If you can do that, then what other proof do you need?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Yep, lady at the front. Yep.
Hello. So hi, I work in the legal tech industry. So I do digital transformation. And one of the problems I always have is when I introduce a tool like AI tool or just some software, and people think that it's really easy to implement, like I'll just adopt it and I'll just uptake it. So it's always an uphill battle to explain it to them. And I think maybe sometimes the way I explain to people who are not very much connected to all these technologies and stuff, they don't seem to understand, and they're always asking me, well, what's the ROI? And I don't see anything substantial in the first month. So I'm always having this challenge. So just wondering, is there any way which you guys have encountered and you could share how I can facilitate with my clients when I'm doing this?
Yeah, Jonathan, do you have some insight on that? How do you get people to take it on if they have some reservations or they're a bit scared?
I think, the ROI, is definitely a, big problem when we establish a project because AI is not cheap, right? So in most cases, we need to do many justification for the project to discuss with different teams, especially for AI. It's often multi-department kind of projects. So it takes a lot of courage. Just like, Permanent said, you need management level to tell your group to embrace change, embrace AI. Sometimes you can pick a staff. We take a little point. You don't need to pick a big project. You can pick a small point to kickstart to let your team to understand AI first, and then once they just like chatbot or maybe OCR or NLP, this kind of small AI technology, once they adapt it, they understand it, they may bring up some new ideas. So you can group your people regularly to once they adapt regularly, they can have some brainstorm meetings to think what's the AI can benefit your business.
And I think just looking at how some factories or even stores have adapted AI and automation, you start with digitalization, and they never start with the whole floor at the same time. It's always one or two lines, maybe one or two customers, and it's really bit by bit. You train 20 workers first, and then they learn, and then you let those 20 workers go and convince the other workers.
Yes.
I mean, based on peer-to-peer. And so actually the process of peer-to-peer education is one of the most fascinating because it's so much more effective than manager to employee. And it's also then those peers who educated their peers, they will have more communication about things aside from what they're supposed to be educating each other about, which is actually great for employee engagement. So, start small. Don't be, don't tell people, we're going to get all the way to there. Just tell people we're just going to get to next week or the week after, and then everyone will learn together, and that will actually have great impact on culture.
Yep. Thanks, Pam. And maybe just one final comment from Whitman, and then
There's an old management terminology for that. It's called finding a change champion. Okay, 20 years ago, I used to do digital transformation. That was pre-AI days. I was doing, ERPs and document management systems. But it was the same thing. Find a change champion, and then they will help you.
Okay, I'm afraid we're out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I'd like to thank you all for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'd like to thank the panel for their time and insights. I think it's been a very fascinating session. So thank you. I know you have lunch or maybe work commitments. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. Thank you to the panelists. Just want to give one final thank you to our sponsors, Microsoft, the Hong Kong Shenzhen Qianhai Authority, Alibaba Cloud, and SoftBank Robotics. Take note that the next session in our series will be taking place on January 21st about cloud computing. Take a look at our website at digitaltransformation.hk, or you can scan the QR code that you see on the screen for any speaker updates with that. Otherwise, thank you all for joining us. We hope you guys enjoyed the discussions, and we hope to welcome you back next time. Thank you.